The wind carried the smell of smoke and burned metal. The sky was dark with ash, and the ground was full of broken machines, fallen trees, and deep craters. The place was called Ash Fields now, a place where two worlds were fighting a long and painful war. Tomil, a young human soldier, moved slowly through the ruins. His face was covered in dirt. His uniform was torn. He had lost his squad during the last attack. The communication device on his wrist was broken, and his energy rifle had only one charge left. The enemy, called the Vari, had attacked without warning. They came from the sky in strange ships shaped like birds, dropping fire and thunder as they landed. Tomil had seen many battles, but this one had turned bad very fast. Everyone was either dead or gone. Now he was alone. He passed a destroyed drone lying in a pile of black sand. Its eyes were cracked. Its lights were dead. The silence around him was strange, too quiet, the kind of quiet that made soldiers nervous. Tomil ducked under a broken steel wall and found an old transport truck. Its wheels were melted and smoke still rose from its engine. But the back door was half open. Maybe it was a good place to hide for now. He pulled the door fully open and froze. Someone was already inside. Lying against the metal wall, half covered in a gray cloak, was a figure. A tall alien woman with soft teal skin and silver hair. Her arm was bleeding. Her breathing was slow. She didn't move. Tomil raised his rifle at once, aiming straight at her head. One shot, one chance. But something made him stop. She wasn't holding a weapon. She wasn't attacking. She looked hurt, weak, lost. Tomil stepped closer. Her eyes opened slowly. They were bright, with a glow like water under moonlight. She stared at him, not with hate, but with surprise and fear. "You, Vari?" Tomil asked quietly. She nodded once. Tomil could have killed her. He should have. But something in her eyes held him back. She looked too human at that moment, tired, confused, and in pain. "Your arm," he said. "It's bad." She tried to speak, but her voice was dry and weak. It sounded like whispers carried by wind. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning. "Help me." He lowered his weapon and pulled out his field med kit. His hands moved fast. He wasn't a doctor, but he had learned enough to stop bleeding. He wrapped her wound, used a healing spray, and gave her a few drops of water. The alien woman blinked slowly, as if surprised he was helping her. He sat back and watched her for a while. She didn't speak again, and neither did he. Night fell. Quickly in the ash fields. The sky turned deep red, and the stars looked like watching eyes. Tomil decided to stay in the transport for the night. It was the only shelter around. He sat near the door, holding his rifle, listening for movement. The alien woman still didn't speak, but she didn't try to run either. She had pulled the cloak tighter around her and was resting her head against the wall. Tomil stared at her for a moment. "Why are you even here?" he asked. She didn't answer. He sighed and looked outside. The fires in the distance still burned. Somewhere out there, both armies were regrouping. Somewhere out there, people like him were still fighting. He turned back to her. "My name is Tomil," he said quietly. She looked at him again. Then slowly, with effort, she placed her hand on her chest and said, "Nira." Her voice was soft and calm. Not what he expected from a Vari. "Nira," he repeated. She gave a small nod. He didn't know what else to say, so he just sat silently, watching the dark while she rested. Later that night, Tommel heard something outside. A soft rustle, a clicking sound, maybe a scout drone. He raised his weapon and listened closely. Nothing. He waited a few minutes more, then slowly relaxed. He glanced back and noticed something surprising. Nira had moved closer. She was now just a few steps away from him. Her eyes were open, but she didn't look afraid. Instead, she looked calm, as if she had made a decision. He didn't move, didn't speak. She sat beside him, carefully, without a word. For the next few hours, they sat together in silence, a human soldier and an alien queen, though Tomil didn't know that yet. He just thought she was a regular alien survivor. But deep inside, Nira was watching him closely. No one had ever treated her like this before. Not in her own world, and definitely not in war. She had power, yes. She had soldiers and ships. But she had never known kindness from an enemy. And now, because of one soldier's choice, everything inside her was changing. She didn't know what the next day would bring. But tonight, she chose to stay, in the tent of a human soldier. The sun rose slowly over the ash fields. The sky was still gray with smoke, but soft morning light touched the broken ground. It was quiet. No gunfire, no ships, only the wind blowing dust across the ruins. Inside the broken transport truck, Tommel opened his eyes. He had slept lightly, his hand still near his weapon. His back hurt from the metal floor, but he didn't care. He turned his head and looked to the side. Nira was still there. The alien woman sat near him, awake. Her cloak was wrapped tightly, and her silver hair fell across her shoulder. She looked tired, but her eyes were clear. Watching him. "You didn't." "Run," Tommel said, his voice low. Nira blinked slowly. "You didn't kill." Tommel didn't know how to reply to that. He rubbed his neck and sat up. His stomach growled. He pulled a small food pack from his bag and took a few bites. After a moment, he held it out to her. Not much, but it's food. Nira took it carefully. She smelled it first, then tasted a piece. Her expression didn't change, but she kept eating. They sat like that for a while, quiet, but not uncomfortable. Just two people from different worlds, eating breakfast in a broken truck in the middle of a battlefield. After eating, Tomil checked the map on his broken wrist device. It flickered, then died again. Still no signal. He stood and looked outside. They couldn't stay here much longer. Scout drones would come, maybe soldiers, maybe worse. He turned back to Nira. "We need to move. There's a small human outpost about 10 miles east. Might be abandoned, might not. But we can try." Nira didn't answer. She stood slowly and followed him out of the truck. They moved across the broken field, keeping low. Smoke still rose, from burned vehicles and ruined bunkers. The land was dead. Nothing green, no life. Only dust and metal bones. Tommel kept his eyes on the sky, scanning for drones. Nira moved quietly beside him. She limped slightly from her injury, but she didn't complain. After an hour of walking, they reached a half-buried hill. Tomil climbed to the top and looked around with binoculars. Then he saw it. A small camp. A tent. A few supply crates, half covered by sand. Maybe it was a forgotten drop zone. Maybe someone else had camped there and left. Either way, it was a place to rest. They reached the camp and checked the supplies. Some old food rations, water filters, a thermal blanket. Not much, but enough. Tomil looked at the tent. It was small, made for one person, but strong against the wind. He turned to Nira. "You can sleep inside. I'll stay out." Nira looked at him strangely. "Why?" He shrugged. "You're hurt. You need it more than I do." Nira tilted her head. "In my world, no warrior gives shelter to an enemy." Tomil gave a small smile. "On Earth, sometimes, kindness wins wars." She said nothing, but entered the tent. Tomil sat outside, leaning against a crate, his rifle across his lap. The wind picked up, cold and sharp. Night came fast again, the sky turned dark, and the stars came out. Tomil stared at them. He used to love the stars as a kid. Now they reminded him of ships and fire. Suddenly, he heard soft steps behind him. He turned. Nira was standing at the tent entrance. Her cloak wrapped around her shoulders, her face lit by the soft moonlight. "You should come inside," she said. Tomil blinked. "What?" "You gave me shelter. I offer it back." He hesitated, then stood and entered the tent with her. It was warmer inside. The space was small, but enough for two people sitting side by side. He sat down, unsure what to say. Nira broke the silence. "I want to tell you something, but you must promise not to leave." Tomil looked at her. "I'm listening." She touched her chest gently. "My name is Nira Valsan. I am not just a soldier. I am the Queen of the Vari." Tomil froze. "Queen?" His brain raced. He had heard her name before, seen it in reports. Nira Valsan, the leader of the Vari Alliance, the voice behind the war, the face on enemy screens, and now she sat beside him, inside his tent. "You're serious?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes." Tomil gripped his rifle tightly. "Then why are you here? Hiding? Wounded?" She looked down. "Not all of my people wanted this war. I came to speak of peace, but someone betrayed me. My own guards turned against me. I escaped, but not far. Then I found you." Tomil stared at her. "You want peace?" "I wanted it before," she said, "but now I understand something more. I saw you, a soldier who should have killed me, but didn't. A human who helped me, who gave me food, water, shelter." Tomil stayed quiet. Nira looked at him. "I want to reach the neutral summit, in the White Valley across the mountains. If I get there, maybe the war can end, but I cannot go alone." "You're asking for my help?" he said. "Yes," she said softly. "I chose to stay in your tent tonight, because I trust you." Tomil took a deep breath. A queen in his tent, a mission that could change the war. He didn't know if she was telling the truth, but deep inside, something told him. This was not just a meeting. This was a turning point. He looked at her and nodded. "All right, we'll go together." Nira gave a small smile. "Then we walk at sunrise." They both lay down in silence, side by side. Outside, the cold wind blew across the land, but inside the tent, for the first time in a long while, there was warmth. The morning was cold, with a thin mist rising from the dry ground. The sky was cloudy again, and the sun was just a faint light behind the gray. Tomil stepped out of the small tent, his rifle ready. He scanned the land in all directions. Still quiet. Inside the tent, Nira packed what little food and water they had left. Her injured arm still ached, but the bandages had helped. She moved carefully, her eyes sharp, her face calm. Tomil walked back to the tent entrance and nodded. "Let's go." Nira followed without a word. They moved quickly through the broken landscape, past cracked rocks, destroyed machines, and old bones of ships that had crashed long ago. The ash fields had seen many battles. Now it felt more like a graveyard than a war zone. Tomil walked ahead, always alert. Nira walked just behind him. They didn't speak much. There was no time for talk. But both of them knew this journey would not be easy. After 2 hours of walking, they reached a deep valley. On both sides, large cliffs rose like walls. The only way forward was straight through the narrow path between the rocks. Tomil didn't like it. "It's a trap zone," he said. "Drones can hide in the cliffs. No cover here." Nira looked up at the sharp rocks. "We must take the risk. The other way is too far, too slow." Tomil sighed. "All right, stay close." They entered the valley. The wind was silent. Even the birds had left this place. Halfway through the path, Tomil's eyes caught a flash of silver. "Down!" he shouted. Nira dropped just in time. A red beam shot through the air and hit a rock, blasting it into pieces. 2 Vari scout drones floated out from behind the cliffs, their eyes glowing, their arms armed with weapons. "They found you," Tomil said, pulling Nira behind a large boulder. "Or maybe they found both of us." Nira peeked over the edge. "Those are Royal Scouts. They were sent to find me." Tomil aimed his rifle. "They don't look friendly." The drones opened fire. Again, rocks shattered. Dust filled the air. Tomil fired back, hitting one in the eye. Sparks flew, and the drone spun out of control before crashing into the ground. The second drone rushed forward. Tomil fired again, but missed. Nira stepped out, holding a broken metal pipe. With surprising speed, she threw it like a spear. The pipe struck the drone's wing. It lost balance and crashed into a wall, exploding in a flash of red. The valley went quiet again. Tomil stood and stared at her. "Nice aim." Nira gave a small nod. "Royal training." Tomil raised an eyebrow. "Remind me not to make you angry." They left the valley fast, knowing more drones could be on the way. By noon, they reached an old human checkpoint. The walls were broken. The gate was open. A rusted flag moved in the wind. Tomil stepped inside first. No soldiers. No lights. Just old supply boxes and sand-covered floors. "We'll rest here," he said. "Just for an hour." Nira sat down under a steel shelter. Her face looked tired. Her breathing was slow. Tomil gave her a water pack and sat nearby. He kept watch while she drank. "Why are they hunting you?" he asked. Nira looked up. "Because I wanted peace. I planned to meet human leaders in the White Valley. But someone in my own council feared that peace would end their power. They set a trap. I escaped." Tomil listened carefully. "You're risking your life for peace?" "Yes," she said simply. Tomil leaned back against the wall. "Most people just want the fighting to stop. But powerful people, they want the war to continue." Nira nodded. "Power feeds on fear. War gives them both." Tomil looked at her. Then let's stop them. As the sun lowered in the sky, they continued walking. The ground changed as they moved. The ash turned into dry soil. Strange plants grew here, tall and thin, with red leaves. The sky began to clear, and distant mountains appeared on the horizon. That's where the White Valley is, Nira said, pointing. 3 days' walk from here. Tomil smiled a little. If no one kills us by then. Suddenly they heard a loud roar behind them. A dark shadow crossed the sky. Tomil looked up. A Vari scout ship. It was small but fast. A hunter-class vessel. It's locking on, Tomil said. Run! They dashed into the thick red plants as the ship fired a warning shot. The ground shook. Trees burned. Smoke rose. Tomil grabbed Nira's hand and pulled her into a deep trench. They rolled into the dirt just before another blast hit the area above them. The ship hovered, scanning. Tomil held his breath. Nira stayed perfectly still. After a minute, the ship flew away, too fast to search on foot. Silence returned. Tomil let go of her hand. That was close. Nira nodded. Too close. He looked at her hand. You okay? She looked down. Yes. You? Still breathing. They climbed out of the trench and looked at the sky. If they sent a ship, Tomil said, they'll send more. We're running out of time. Nira looked at him. Then we must move faster. That night, they found a cave near the edge of a river. The sound of water helped cover their tracks. Inside, it was dry and safe, a good place to sleep. Tomil set up a small fire using dried wood and a heat stick from his pack. They sat across from each other, watching the flames dance. You saved me back there, Nira said. You saved me too, Tomil replied. She looked at him, eyes calm. I thought humans were cruel, but now I think I was wrong. Tomil poked the fire. I thought the same about the Vari. They shared a quiet moment. In the flames, they saw something more than survival. They saw hope. The fire crackled quietly inside the small cave. Outside, the river made a soft sound as it flowed over smooth stones. The stars above were bright now, free from smoke for the first time in days. Tomil sat close to the fire, his hands outstretched toward the warmth. His rifle rested beside him, but his eyes were not watching for danger now. They were watching Nira, who sat across from him, her teal skin glowing faintly in the firelight. Nira held a small crystal in her hand. It was round, flat, and had lines etched into its surface. She turned it slowly, letting the light catch each symbol. This, she said softly, is how my people speak across long distances. We call it a memory stone. Tomil leaned forward. A message device? Yes. But it holds more than words. It holds feelings, sounds, light. My people don't write stories with letters like humans do. We write them with light patterns and sound waves. She held the crystal near the fire and tapped it twice. A faint light appeared above it, shimmering like water, and a soft humming sound filled the cave. Shapes and symbols floated in the air, like tiny stars forming into pictures. Tomil watched, amazed. That's beautiful, Nira smiled gently. It is how we share our past, our truths. She pointed to one glowing symbol. This is my father. He was king before me. He believed in peace with new worlds. Tomil looked at the symbol. What happened to him? He was killed during the first human contact, she said. Her voice didn't shake, but her eyes did. Our people thought it was an attack. So, they prepared for war. Tamil frowned. But it wasn't an attack. The first human contact ship, it had scientists, not soldiers. Neera nodded. Now I know. But by the time I became queen, the war had already begun, and the voices calling for peace were quiet. Tamil looked into the fire. Sometimes war starts because of one mistake. One misunderstanding, Neera looked at him. And sometimes peace begins with one act of kindness. They sat silently for a few minutes, the soft light of the memory stone glowing between them. Then Tamil reached into his bag and pulled out a small black box. He opened it and took out a tiny device. "What is that?" Neera asked. "A data beacon," Tamil said. "It was meant for deep space. We were building it to send messages to far-off planets. But your people thought it was a weapon." Neera's eyes widened. "This is the beacon? The one that started everything?" Tamil nodded. "Yeah, it's not a bomb. It just sends signals, peace messages, music, images of Earth." He activated it. A soft tune played, an old Earth melody, slow and full of feeling. A blue light shone from the device, showing pictures of green forests, tall mountains, and children laughing. Neera stared at the images. This is what we thought was a threat?" "Yes," Tamil said, "and because of that, thousands died." Neera closed her eyes for a moment. "We were wrong, deeply wrong." Tamil turned off the device and looked at her. "Then help me show this to both sides. Let them see what really happened." Neera opened her eyes and nodded. "Yes, this changes everything." Later, they both sat back, tired from the long day. The cave was warm now. The fire had turned to glowing embers. Tamil looked up at the ceiling. "You said the summit is across the mountains. How far?" "2 more days," Neera replied. "If we stay off the roads." Tamil nodded slowly. "Then we keep moving. But tomorrow, we find faster travel." Neera tilted her head. "Faster? How?" "There's a human outpost just south of here. If it hasn't been looted, we might find a ground bike. Or a small glider." Neera raised an eyebrow. "You trust your own outpost?" Tamil chuckled softly. "Not really, but we don't have many choices." She smiled a little. "I'm starting to understand humans." Tamil looked at her. "How so?" "You always laugh before walking into danger." He laughed again. "It helps." Before sleeping, Neera pulled out another small stone from her pouch. It was dark, with a single glowing mark. "What's that?" Tamil asked. "A royal bond stone," she said quietly. "Only carried by queens. If I break it, every Vari leader will know my location." Tamil stared at the stone. "Why haven't you used it?" "Because I don't know who I can trust." He nodded. "Then keep. It's safe, for the right moment." Neera placed it back inside her cloak and lay down beside the fire. Tamil did the same. The flames flickered gently between them. In the silence of the cave, surrounded by the memory of fire and stone, a bond was forming, stronger than fear, stronger than lies. In the morning, before the first light touched the land, they left the cave. The river beside them flowed calmly, unaware of the storm building beyond the mountains. They walked side by side, 2 people once called enemies, now walking toward peace, with the truth in their hands and a quiet hope in their hearts. The war was not over, but something had already begun to change. The sun was high, but the air was still cold. The wind carried the smell of dry earth and smoke. Tommel and Nira moved carefully through the open plain, keeping their heads low as they followed a broken road leading to an old human outpost. It was silent all around. No machines, no soldiers. Just the sound of their boots crunching over cracked stones. They reached a hill and stopped. From the top, they could see the outpost, a group of square metal buildings, surrounded by half-broken fences. A tall watchtower stood at the center, though its top was missing. Tomil took out his binoculars and scanned the area. "No movement," he said. "Looks empty, but we stay sharp." Nira nodded. She pulled her cloak tighter around her, hiding the shine of her skin. Even though she was queen, here she was just a traveler, one being hunted by both sides. They moved toward the gate slowly. Tomil pushed the broken door open and entered first. The place smelled like rust and oil. Inside the garage, they found what they were hoping for, a small desert glider, half covered in a tarp. "It still has fuel," Tommel said, checking the control panel. "If we're lucky, it'll take us all the way to the mountains." Nira smiled slightly. "For once, luck is on our side." Tommel loaded the supplies onto the back, water, rations, a few tools. Then he handed Nira a small human comm device. "Use this if we get separated." She took it and nodded. Everything was going smoothly, too smoothly. Just as Tomil was starting, the engine, a sharp sound rang through the air, a high-pitched alarm. Nira spun around. Someone triggered a sensor. Tommel cursed under his breath. "Hide!" But it was too late. The ground shook. A small patrol vehicle rolled in through the east gate, stopping sharply in front of them. 5 human soldiers jumped out, weapons raised. Behind them came a taller man in black armor with a red command patch on his shoulder. Tomil's face went pale. "General Bren." The general stepped forward, his cold eyes locking on Tomil. "Well, well, look what we found." The soldiers surrounded them in seconds. One soldier grabbed Nira by the arm and pulled off her cloak, revealing her teal skin and silver hair. The soldiers gasped. "She's the alien queen," one whispered. The general raised his hand. "Take her. Restrain her. She's worth more. Alive." Nira didn't resist. Her eyes stayed on Tomil. 2 soldiers grabbed Tomil as well. He didn't fight them. "Sir, you don't understand," Tomil began. "I understand plenty," General Bren snapped. "You've been missing for days, and now I find you protecting the enemy queen?" "She came for peace," Tomil said. "She was betrayed by her own people. She wants to stop the war. I saw the memory stones. She saved my life." "Enough," the general barked. "You've gone soft. Or worse, you've turned traitor." Tommel's fists tightened. "I did what was right." Bren looked at him with cold eyes. "You'll explain that at the military court." He turned to his soldiers. "Bring them both back to the command base." Hours passed. Tomil sat in a dark holding room, hands cuffed, his back against the wall. His mind was racing. What if they took Nira off-world? What if they used her as a weapon? Or worse, silenced her before she could speak? He had to do something. Fast. Suddenly the door opened, and to his surprise, it wasn't a guard. It was Nira. Her cuffs were gone, her eyes full of fire. "Come quickly," she said. "What? How did you—" "No time," she said, unlocking his cuffs with a guard's key. As they ran through the hallway, Tomil noticed the base alarms were off. No lights. No guards. What happened? He asked. I used the royal bondstone, she said. I sent a silent call to a few Vari allies I still trust. They came, quiet and fast. You had backup this whole time? Tomel said, surprised. No, I waited until I believed you, she replied. Until I trusted you. They reached the exit door. Outside, two tall Vari scouts stood near a cloaked ship. The ship's door opened. Come, one scout said. We leave now. Enemy units will return soon. Tomil stopped before boarding. What about General Bren? The others? They'll be fine, Nira said. We didn't harm anyone, but we disabled their systems. It will delay them. Tomil nodded, then followed her into the ship. As the door closed behind them and the ship rose into the sky, Nira turned to him. We have one chance left, she said. The summit is tomorrow. If we reach it, we can show them everything. Tomel placed the beacon and memory stone into a small data box. Then let's finish what we started. From the sky, the land below looked quiet and broken. Cities in ruins. Rivers turned dry. Forests burned to ash. But in that small ship, something stronger than fire and war moved forward. Hope. The sky was dark with clouds when the ship landed near the edge of the White Valley. A cold wind blew through the rocky hills, and the air was full of quiet tension. It was the place where peace talks were supposed to begin, but the ground looked more like a battlefield than a summit. Tomel stepped out first, his boots crunching against the cold dirt. He scanned the horizon with his scope. What do you see? Nira asked, stepping beside him. He pointed toward the valley floor. There, both armies, human forces on the left, Vari units on the right. But they're not talking. They're waiting. Watching. Nira narrowed her eyes. Waiting for a reason to fight again. Tomil nodded. Or waiting for someone to stop it. Behind them, the Vari scout ship lifted into the air and disappeared. They were alone now. Just the two of them. Again. Nira adjusted her long cloak and took a deep breath. If I speak now, they might still listen. Tomil took out the small black box that held the memory stone and the beacon. Then we show them the truth. As they walked down the rocky slope, human snipers spotted them. Drones flew overhead. The moment was tense. Soldiers raised their weapons. Vari warriors stepped forward, shields glowing. One wrong move and everything could fall apart. Tomil held up a white signal flag in one hand and the black box in the other. Don't shoot, he shouted into the human comm system. We come in peace. Nira spoke at the same time in her own language, her voice calm but strong. I am Queen Nira Valsan. I bring the truth, and I bring hope. Both sides paused. No one fired. Tomil. And Nira stopped in the middle, at the crossroads between the two armies. The wind blew hard, but they stood tall. A human officer stepped forward, General Bren, recovered and angry, his eyes locked onto Tomil. You again, he said. You think walking in with a flag will fix everything? Nira stepped in front of Tomil. Not a flag, the truth. She lifted the memory stone and tapped it twice. A glowing light appeared in the air. Images formed. The first meeting, the data beacon, and the deep space message meant for peace, not war. Then came her own memories. How she was betrayed, how she was saved, and how one human soldier chose kindness over hate. The air was filled with sound and light. On both sides, soldiers lowered their weapons, watching in silence. Even General Bren's face changed. He had seen many things in war, but never this. Nira took another step forward. This war was built on fear and lies, she said. I was told Earth was preparing a weapon, but it was not. It was a message. A gift. We attacked because we misunderstood. And now we have lost so much. Her voice grew stronger. But a human soldier found me, alone, wounded and far from home. He could have ended my life, but he didn't. He helped me. He protected me. And because of him, I see the truth. She turned to Tomil and gave a small nod. Tomil opened the black box and turned on the beacon. A soft sound filled the valley, a peaceful melody from Earth. Then images of forests, animals, children playing in fields. This is Earth, Tomil said. Not a threat, just a world that wants to be understood. Then, out of nowhere, a gunshot echoed through the valley. A single shot. A Vari rogue officer standing in the back of their line had fired. The bullet flew fast, straight toward Nira. Tomil didn't think. He stepped in front of her. The shot hit his side. He fell to his knees. Tomil! Nira cried, catching him before he hit the ground. Gasps rose from both sides. The shooter was arrested immediately by his own men. Tomil groaned, holding his side. His armor had stopped most of it, but the pain was real. I'm okay, he whispered. Nira held him tightly. You saved me. Again. Tomil smiled weakly. Well, it's kind of my thing now. The officers from both sides rushed forward. This time, no one raised weapons. Instead, they helped Nira stand. They called for a medic. They looked at Tomil with new eyes, eyes that saw not an enemy or a traitor, but a man who believed in something more. General Bren knelt beside him. You were right, soldier. Tomil looked up. So, are we done fighting? The general nodded slowly. Maybe. Maybe we are. That night, in a large tent at the center of the valley, leaders from both sides sat together. No war plans, no threats, just words. Nira sat near Tomil, her voice steady as she shared the truth. Tomil, now bandaged but alive, told his story too. People listened, people believed, and something rare happened. Peace began. By morning, both armies started pulling back. The sky felt a little clearer, the wind a little softer, and the land that had been filled with death now held hope. Tomil stood at the edge of the valley, watching the sun rise. Nira stepped beside him. You changed my world, she said. Tomil looked at her. You changed mine too, she smiled. And now, maybe we can change others. He nodded. Together. The days after the peace gathering in White Valley passed slowly but peacefully. For the first time in many years, no guns fired and no warships moved in the sky. Soldiers from both sides started packing up. Trenches were closed. Camps were cleared. And hope began to grow like green grass after a long winter. Tomil sat outside a small shelter, a blanket wrapped around his shoulders. His wound was healing. It still hurt when he moved too fast, but he didn't complain. Nira walked toward him, carrying a warm drink made from herbs she had brought from her home world. She handed it to him with a soft smile. Still hurts? She asked gently. Tomil took a sip. A little, but it's not the worst pain I've had. She sat beside him. Do you regret it? Standing in front of that bullet? He looked at her, his eyes calm. Not for a second. Nira's face became serious. You could have died. Tomil smiled slightly. You could have too. They both sat in silence for a while, watching the orange sun rise above the hills. The sky was clear. Birds flew in the air. Somewhere in the distance, humans and Vari were working together to build a joint outpost, a place where both sides could meet without fear. Later that day, Nira was called to speak at the United Space Assembly, a large gathering where leaders from many planets met. They wanted to hear her side of the story, what really happened, and why peace was possible. She asked Tomil to join her. They traveled in a small human shuttle. The journey took only a few hours, but the moment felt heavy. Tomil had never spoken in front of leaders before. He was a soldier, not a speaker. Nira noticed his silence. Nervous? She asked. Tomil gave a short laugh. A little. She reached out and placed her hand gently on his. You just have to speak from the heart, she said. That's what saved us the first time. The hall was massive. Lights above, flags hanging from the walls, delegates from Earth, Vari, and many other worlds sat in circles waiting. Nira stepped to the center first. She stood tall, her royal cloak flowing behind her. Her voice was calm and clear. Our war started from fear and false messages, she said. We believed Earth wanted to destroy us, but it wasn't true. I know this because I lived with a human. I saw their world. I shared their food, their sky, and their kindness. She paused. This war ended because one man chose to show mercy when he could have shown hate. That single choice changed everything. Then she stepped back and nodded to Tomil. Tomil walked to the center slowly. He wasn't used to crowds, but he didn't look down. My name is Tomil, he began. I'm not a leader. I'm not a hero. I'm just a soldier. I followed orders. I protected my team. But one night I found someone I was told to fear, someone different. He looked toward Nira. But when I looked at her, I didn't see a monster. I saw someone tired, hurt, alone. So I helped her. Not because I had to, but because it was the right thing to do. He paused, then spoke the last words carefully. If we can all make one right choice, again and again, maybe we don't need war anymore. The hall was silent for a moment. Then, slowly, the crowd stood. Applause filled the room. Some people cried, others nodded, but everyone felt the same thing, a shift, a beginning. Later, the Assembly passed a new agreement, the Earth-Vari Peace Pact. It promised joint research, open borders, and cultural exchange. Both worlds would learn from each other, and they would rebuild together. Back on Earth, Tomil received a medal from the president, but he didn't keep it for long. He placed it inside a simple box and gave it to Nira. This belongs to you too, he said. She held it carefully, touched by his words. Soon after, Nira invited Tomil to visit her home world, Varsal, a planet of deep blue oceans, tall glowing trees, and floating cities. He accepted. When they arrived, the people of Varsal welcomed him with flowers and music. He saw children playing, elders bowing, and artists painting images of peace. Nira took him to the Hill of Stars, a place where the sky was always filled with light. My people once stood here and prayed for strength, she said. Now we Stand here and pray for peace. Tomil looked around. It's beautiful. She nodded. It is. And it's better now that you're here. Weeks passed. Tomil began working as a peace trainer, helping young humans and Vari understand each other. He taught simple things: how to listen, how to stay calm, how to ask questions before making judgments. Nira continued her duties as queen, but her voice had changed. She spoke not just as a ruler, but as someone who had lived the war and survived it through compassion. Sometimes, late at night, they would sit under the twin moons of Varsal and talk about the past. Do you ever miss the old days? Nira asked once. Tomil chuckled. The tents, the hunger, the cold? Not really. She laughed too. But maybe the silence, the sky, the small moments. He nodded. Those, yes. One evening, a group of children gathered around them. Is it true you slept in the same tent? A little Vari girl asked. Nira smiled. Yes. Weren't you afraid? Tomil shook his head. Not anymore. Why? He looked at Nira. She looked back. Because we learned that fear disappears when you understand someone. The children nodded, wide-eyed. And in that moment, it was clear that a new generation was already growing, a generation without hate. At last, peace wasn't just a dream, it was real, it was alive, and all because one alien queen chose to stay the night in one human soldier's tent.